So I'm going to go ahead and get started. We have a few announcements. Do we have anyone that has been a change in the lead testing coordinator and was not the testing coordinator in December? What campus?
Idea High School.
What's your name?
Erica Johnson.
Okay. And then there should be one more. Okay.
And Roosevelt.
Lindsay. Charlotte.
Oh, hi. Very nice to meet you.
Okay. So you guys survived GLCs and ACPs concurrently. We appreciate your hard work and know that you guys have been very stressed completing those tasks, and we're glad that everything went out. The district plans on receiving the ELC scores this week. The scores will be posted to My Data Portal, not to the Texas Assessment Center. My Data Portal, and Karen will send an email message when the scores are posted on the site. Normally we have to get permission from the superintendent to release the scores, and so when those are posted, we'll send an email out. Any score code changes for December ELCs, we'll give you guidance on how to do that within the email we'll send out this week. We have an electronic form that you will need to complete in order to get the score code changed. Very rare do we have score code changes for ELCs, but there are instances where sometimes a student was marked absent who should have been marked scored. In those cases, they don't score a test, even if the kid filled it all out, so we would have to request a score code change. Any test security concerns at this time should be directed to Karen Byers. Rena did retire in December, so until further notice, make sure to send test security concerns to Karen. The CFA CBE application deadline for you guys is January 31st. I know at some campuses this is handled by the counselors and then some by the high school testing coordinator, so just make sure to adhere to that deadline. Right now, since October, y'all been receiving the emails regarding the years in U.S. schools. This is the time where you really need to start paying attention to them. I know Carter and Roosevelt, you have outstanding ones that you probably need to address this week. We start our upload for TELPAS in February, the first week of February, and so that needs to really be addressed prior to the upload. We know that new students will enroll weekly, but the ones that have been here for at least since December should have been addressed by now. The designated supports window opens on January 16th, and the final deadline to input for STAR and for spring ACPs is March the 20th. For this semester, they've also given access to the assistant principals throughout the window. So even if the window closes, the principal and assistant principals still have access to capture the supports for students as needed. If you have not done so, please take your completed ACP surveys to the service center. Right now, we're in the makeup window for ACPs that ends on the 21st. And by the 21st, you also need to request a box pickup to return all your non-scorable materials. We appreciate the feedback you've given so far on the surveys. We do read all of the surveys, and we have gotten feedback on some of our paper forms that we plan on addressing and hopefully making them online and user-friendly. There are 4 NAIC schools this year, and Fred Washington is the contact for that. He should have already contacted you. If you can't remember if you're a NAIC school, please just go into the office in there and talk with Fred and verify that you've completed all of your NAIC tasks. Right now is the time to submit your offer approval, so your accommodations request forms, and that's for the students that need extra day, complex transcribing, and math scribe. And so usually that has to be a TBA approval. If you plan on submitting that, a request in, make sure to put your name as the testing coordinator, as the sender. Karen gets a copy of the email as well, and TA will approve based on the information you filled out in the form. Star Alt 2, I contacted a few campuses last week regarding Star Alt 2. We uploaded December 23rd on Star Alt 2, for Star Alt 2. Just like last year, the way we get books is based off student registration. So the IEP has to match the student schedule. If those two do not match exact, then there will not be a book for it. This week we plan on sending you guys an email letting you know which students were uploaded for testing. If you have a student that was omitted, call us, talk to us. We'll walk you through to figure out why the student was omitted. But only the students that are in that email, those students that are in the email get first priority. So if a kid had an ARD this week and it didn't reflect Star Alt 2, they would have to wait until the additional order window for us to order books. And we're going to change the process of how we order books for Star Alt 2, and that will give you more information on that in February. I want to go over the handouts. Okay, we have the agenda. On the agenda is our website, assessment.dallasisd.org. It also has our upcoming trainings. We have a December ELC debriefing for new high school testing coordinators. We can't make you come, but we are strongly encouraging the high school testing, 13 high school testing coordinators who are new to sit down and talk with us. We want to just see what your pitfalls were and then walk through some best practice processes with you guys to help you prepare for all of the spring testing, because you'll be doing a lot of things concurrently and we want to walk you through it. We encourage veteran TCs like Michael and Lauren, if you guys can come out also to give feedback on your processes, to share your best practices also, that would help us out a lot. Tanidra as well. Let's see, the agenda looks pretty lengthy. It kind of is kind of lengthy today, but we'll try to get through this as before 4, I know, and give you time to prepare for TELPAS by sitting down talking with us through the process. You have 2 handouts with Section 504 and Star Alternate. These are training opportunities. Sometimes testing coordinators want to hear the same things that the SPED people are hearing or the 504 people are hearing. These are just FYI, they're not mandatory, so you can just let your people on campus to make sure that they know that there are training opportunities for them coming up to prepare for upcoming spring testing. The pink sheet, this is regarding My Data Portal. We just gave a how-to because we had a lot of principals call asking, well, how do I sign? I'm not the person, so we just wrote some steps out for the principal, and you can share this as needed with the principal on campus. You have the left coding for, that's in Power School, and we'll go over this information shortly within the presentation, but it's front and back. Secondary on one side, elementary on another side, and it identifies all the students that are eligible for TELPAS. The brown sheet, this is new. I worked with the IT department to come up with a report for you guys regarding Star Alt 2. So if you go to monitor Star ELC Monitor and then Star EOC Compare is the name of the report. It's the last report under Monitor. It will pull up all the kids that are eligible for Star Alt 2, and in the last column, it gives you information on their status. So if it says okay, that means they're getting a test booklet. If it says review, and right now I think total for the district is about 9 students in review, that means there's something wrong with either the IEP or the schedule. If it says taken, that means they've already taken Star Alt 2 and they don't need to take it again. Remember, Star Alt 2 is a participation. So once they take it once, they don't need to take it again. And so this, the front side with the My Data Portal, that's the side that I created. SPED is getting trained this week also, and on the back side is what SPED is getting. There's three PowerPoint slides. Oh, my bad. I'll get it to you. But I was, it's 3 PowerPoint slides that pretty much says the same thing, but it's for the SPED teachers. And it shows them where to find their report in SPED. And I'll hand this out before the end of the week. And so if now you don't even have to question, you can just send the report to the SPED people. This week, hopefully they'll know what you're talking about to see what they need to address in the R. And we can't order books until it's been addressed in the IEP. Next is TELPAS campus plan. Go ahead.
Is that report, that all these reports that are live right now?
Yeah. And it refreshes nightly.
I'm not seeing it.
Under Monitor?
Yeah.
It's at the very bottom.
It's the very last report.
Star Alt EOC Compare.
It's in My Data Portal. So Monitor, the last one.
See, I don't have all those options.
Okay, so you need to request school-wide access.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna pull up Brian Adams since I'm here. So right now there's like 3 students that say taken. Their IEPs need to be addressed because they've already taken that course, so that it should not be checked as an option for this school year. Then there's a kid over here that says biology review. This kid is probably not in the course, so we'll go back and look. But the IEP says that he's supposed to take biology this year. He's not in the course. So he should not have, his IEP should not state that he's taking biology this year because he's not enrolled in the course. All right? The campus plan we'll go over at the end of the testing of our meeting today. We have reference guides, and this has come directly from the SPED department on preparing for TELPAS alternate, and it gives you the codes in Power School for those that should get eligible to test and those not eligible. You have a rater manual. The rater manuals were also mailed to you guys, shipped to you guys this past week. Remember the test administrator manual, if you need those, you'll need to print those out for your campus staff. You probably won't need more than 2 or 3. The manuals aren't that long. I think it's like 44 pages for the administrator manual. Then the last thing you have is a packet. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just received the opposite. I received the TELPAS administration manual and the Yes, Mr. Chairman, but I didn't receive any rater manual.
Okay, so that means you probably have to print these then.
Okay.
Nobody received Raider manual. Yeah, the Raider manual is the one you have to print. We gave you a copy, that's why she gave you a copy. So,
But the teachers really only need
the Raider, and I mean, the only pages you really need to print out, well, it's only for your Raiders, so you'll have to print these out. The main things you would need to print out is the PLDs, and then the verification checklist and cover sheets. But everybody will, Lakita, Felicia, Keisha will go over this in a few minutes. So again, you received the administrator manual, but not the grader. And I emailed you the link last week for the grade, for both. So just use that link to print.
The Raider manual over there, because mine doesn't say Raider manual, but I was down.
It was over there. We need more?
Oh,
Yeah.
Something they need to reference.
And everybody kept their STAR manual, right? Y'all just shipped them back, correct? The last thing you received, oh, wait. Okay, the last thing you receive is a packet, and it's pretty much all the forms that's on TEA's website. We just printed them out for you, but if you type in TELPAS TEA, it'll lead you to this. And so it's the participation forms in English and Spanish, along with eligibility criteria, the medically exempt form, and a copy of the TELPAS alternate manual. And also the observational protocols. You should have received your observational protocols on campus with your TELPAS manuals. And you can print more of those as needed as well. And we'll talk about when they become secure. They're not secure until you write a student's name on the protocol. Any questions? Okay, right now Erin is going to come and talk about SAT.
Good afternoon, guys. My name is Aaron Robinson. I am the Post-Secondary Success Coordinator. I'm in charge of ACT, SAT School Day operations and also boot camp sessions for students and then the teacher trainings for SAT and ACT provided by Princeton Review. Also, I teach Monday through Friday, test prep, ACT and SAT at select locations. And so if you ever have questions or email me, I will try to get back to you as soon as possible, but most of the time it is after I finish teaching in the afternoon. I always provide my cell phone number, so feel free to give me a call or shoot me a text. That's probably the quickest way to reach me. And email is always there as well. June Young Scholarship Program is just a scholarship program, free ride for five schools in BISD. They get a free ride for students who are interested in business. And it's at Roosevelt, W.T. White, Molina, Townview, and then also schools. So if you're at those locations, it's a big push to get students who are interested in business get full rides to UT. All right, let's jump into it. SAT School Day will be on March 4th. And it is for all juniors, 11th grade students. The question was, you know, if you have a 10th grader who is a third-year student, but they have 10th grade, they don't have enough credits to be considered a junior, yes, they can take this test if they aren't on the path to graduate with their peers, with the 3-year students. Okay? If they are not on the path to graduate with those students, do not have them take it. Also, if you have a second-year 11th grade student, meaning they were 11th grade last year and they took the SAT and they're still 11th grade this year, they are not to take the SAT this year. Okay? If they do, your campus will be charged for that. Makeup SAT school day is on March 25th, and so it's not mandatory to have this. However, if you do have a student who really wants to take this test, okay, we definitely encourage you guys this year to have that second date, okay, because our jobs are to ensure that we provide every resource for our students to take these tests, so to utilize the school day operation. So same thing goes for that. 11th grade students own.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
So I have a kid take the test and it says he's a 10th grader, and we get the bill, they're charging TELPAS for it.
Are they in are they on the same path to graduate with their
I don't
peers?
know the answer to that, but SAT just wants to know what grade they're in, and they put what grade they're in. Do I lie and say they're an 11th grader?
You're able to change that in the system. So when I talked to Amanda, the person who's over this, she said whenever you go back, when they're initially uploaded, yes, if you try to plug that student in there, it'll show 10th grader, but you have the ability to go in and change it to 11th grade. If
Before we
they,
get into it.
right, yeah. However, if they are on the path to graduate, then go ahead and put them in. Let's see, because also I hear that there's a probable power school as well with credits and stuff. So as long as you know that they're on the path to graduate, then of course you make sure that you change it in the system on your end. If you have an issue changing it, I've never done it yet. Just you can call SAT school day, or you can let me know and then we can figure it out together. Yes, ma'am. So one thing I wanted to talk about on that, it was a big push last year to make sure we did the SAT school day for all your 11th graders that you have on campus or list that are enrolled. And of course, you know your students better than me. If you know they're not going to show up, don't order the test for them. But if they're really trying to take this test, make sure that we give them that outlet to take this test, or that resource to take this test. So yeah, you don't have to order for the students who are constantly through it and don't show up. But yes, that's a good point. If you make sure you have enough tests, or you don't have more tests than it's 20%. If you go over 20%, then your campus will be charged for that 20%. So no, it would be the campus would pay for that. If you go over or under 20%, or actually not under, if you go over 20% on these tests, your campus will pay for it. Will have to. So do not order for the students that are truant on the makeup test day. Okay. Or even on the regular test day, if you know you have, if 20% of your juniors don't show up, like I said, you use your best judgment. You know what students are going to show up, and I would stay in constant communication with those students who are truant.
The window to amend our order.
The window to what? Amend your order? That's I have it on the next slide. And I believe it's going to be the 31st. Here's a little video to get us motivated. Sure, you guys probably seen this. We got some new ones.
Aaron, you got the extra slideshow so you can show.
Exit now.
Now you don't have to do it.
Well, this never works. I don't know. I see.
Take it on this Saturday.
All right, imagine we just watched that video and we're extremely motivated now. All right. Right here I have some links for you guys. If you want to get motivated again, you can always click on the link. There's also I got the link right here provided. This PowerPoint will be given to you guys, I think, through.
Yes.
So she'll post this for you guys to have. Remember, SAT School Day Support Hotline. Make sure if you ever have any issues, you call them as soon as possible. Okay. When you call, make sure you always document the issue you're having, the resolution that the agent provided, if any, the agent's name and number, the date, and then you send me that document. For instance, we had, I use an example. I know a couple campuses have outstanding invoices for SAT. Don't worry, I'm working on that. But at one of the campuses, we had SAT shoot us an invoice at Woodrow, I believe, where he's at, and they tried to say that we ordered tests. Luckily, we had the documentation to say that she was unable to get into the system, and they're the ones who actually ordered the test, and they tried to invoice us for that. So the best part of that was we had the documentation to support what we were saying. So always document whenever you call as soon as possible. I guarantee they're going to know more about the SAT than I do and all the operations. So give them a call first, and then you can always give me a call after. Here goes some key dates. Tomorrow is the deadline to submit testing accommodations for students with disabilities. Not the order, but to request the accommodations. Okay. Tomorrow is the deadline to request accommodations for students with disabilities. So I believe it's 504 coordinators on campus and SPED department. Yes. All right, the 31st, January 31st is the deadline to reduce test book orders. It's also the deadline to order standard and accommodation test books. And then the deadline to request extended time for English learners. Okay, get with the LPAT coordinators to see how many tests need to be ordered for the English learners. Any questions so far? Yes, ma'am.
Kids that get extended time don't get special tests, they just use the same test. You don't order specific test booklets for them. Accommodated test would be somebody who's blind, or someone that needs big print, not just someone that gets regular extra time.
So
you don't order those very often.
right, that's what it says.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, did I say something?
It's an accommodated test book, so I was confused about that.
No, for January 14th.
Oh, got it. Okay.
And then also for January 31st, deadlines to order standard and accommodation test books. But then you also have the deadline to request extended time for English learners. So not to request books for English learners. Actually, that's written on there both days. That's written on there January 31st and February 1st. I'll have to double check. I believe it's going to be. I'll fix it before. I'll fix it before. If y'all notice, it's fixed. English learners, the last bullet on January 31st and the first bullet on February 1st. I'll make sure I'll get that corrected and then send it to you guys once it's corrected. All right, February 18th through the 20th, schools receive pre-administration materials, answer sheets, and student guides. What they said this year is new is that they send answer documents with the pre-administration. I thought they did that last year when I served on Kimball's campus, but I could be wrong. They did. Yeah, they said that's a new process this year. That's just what they're saying. They're sending new answer. They're sending the documents with the pre-administration supplies. Also, they're not sending extra answer documents this year. So that's new. They're only sending the amount of answer documents for the order that you have submitted for your test questions. February 26th. On February 26th, March 2nd, all schools receive test books during this time. If you do not receive it, if you have not received it by March 1st, please start calling me. Call me and let me know. That way we can harass College Board to make sure this happens and to make sure they have sent it. We've only had, correct me if we've only had one school switch that, Southwest Clifton was that. Anybody else switch locations due to renovations? No? Oh, Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah, over here.
Thomas Jefferson. When you ordered, by any chance, did you put it at the new location? Not yet? Okay. I will make a note of that. We can get that taken care of. No worries. But Ms. Harris, when we spoke, when I did the order, I think I did it right. You're the one who told me. All right. Let's see here. March 4th through the 5th. We take the test on March 4th. You got to the 5th to return all answer sheets and test booklets, used and unused, from the March 4th administration. It says March 6th, so please excuse that error. And then some schools will be directed to return materials on a different timeline. Check your manual for those instructions. We are all going to turn it in at the same time. March 4th through the 6th, the window to order test booklets for the makeup test. Once again, that's going to be for the students you know are going to show up on March 25th. Okay? I don't want you guys at your campus to pay for that 20%. If you know that they're going to be there and they're really sincere about taking this test, let's ensure that we order those tests for only those students. And finally, March 26th, most scores will be available. Some essay scores may be posted on a later date. Any questions so far about this timeline? This is the SAT testing basics. The test is with essay. So if you put your order in and it's with essay, you did a good job. Make sure it's for 11th grade students. I've actually did the order and it's kind of tricky. You got to be real careful to make sure you do it for 11th grade students only. That pre-administration process, I mentioned last year that you guys would have help from your CAP advisors. That should still be true. However, we would have to reach out to them now to make sure that they'll be available for that day. If we try to reach out to them the week before or whenever we receive it, it might be too late. So I would go ahead and start buttering them up right now and seeing if they can help you with that pre-administration process if you need help with it. And that's going to be your CAP advisors. They're going to be Education is Freedom, ASP, and SMU. Any questions on that? All right. Distribute student, during the pre-administration process, you're going to distribute the student guide so students can learn what to expect on this test. You're going to have students fill out their identifying information. And then work with students to determine where they will send their 4 free score reports to colleges and scholarships. It can be done on student answer sheets. Important changes new this year. Staff to student ratio for accommodations was 1 to 10 last year, now it is 1 to 20. Merry Christmas. They mentioned that the UPS pickup is going to be new this year. However, I believe they had it set up last year, which essentially is you're going to use your regular UPS pickup, your regular pickup that you have at your school. If you do not have a regular pickup, schedule a pickup. Schedule a pickup no later than the 5th. No later than the 5th. Also new, MP3 audio will now be on a streaming app instead of flash drive. So last year they said they gave it on a flash drive, this year it's on a streaming app. Yes, ma'am?
For ACT, I had to go through the district in order to download the app for our Chromebooks.
Okay.
It was a huge hassle. I mean, that was just,
I think it's a good.
okay, that would be amazing.
So web-based versus an app that you have to download?
Yeah.
Okay, I will find out for you. So if it's a app that you have to download, that's where you're having the most issues for Chromebooks?
Yeah, but you can't, yeah, for Chromebooks, you can't download an app on the Chromebook. You have to have district
Oh, I see.
approval. They had to
Sorry?
They can download it and push it to all the Chromebooks that we have, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so I'll find out, and then that sounds like the best idea if we can download that.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Why do you do a waiver for that 1:20 ratio?
A waiver
Yeah, for more.
to have to boost the number? I would say call SAT school day and
Because I,
Let's
the
just put
numbers,
the
the
companies.
numbers that I tested, I ordered for my test, I need like 25 reviews.
for a combination?
Is that for just a combination?
That's just a combination.
Just a combination, okay, I missed that.
Sorry, yes. I wasn't being condescending and when I said Merry Christmas, if it had went down in 120. No, it was,
What's the ratio on the
I believe it's 1 to 30.
Well, but oral admin, if you're doing it just a paper oral admin,
That's a conversation.
Or
that's like.
1 to 1. Yeah, but so the accommodations, the ratio was 1 to 10, it now went up to 1 to 20. So that did go up on the accommodation side. Let's see, answer sheets will be delivered during pre-administration. You will not receive any extra answer sheets. So if you order 200, you get 200 answer sheets. All right, gender identification for students, it has changed. It gives them more options. If you are reporting an irregularity, you must apply the IR label to the outside of the box with all used answer documents. Okay? Scores will be delayed if this is not handled properly. So if you have an irregularity, take that sticker off and put it on the outside of that box for the all used answer documents that you're sending back. All right? And then the frequently asked questions, that's a link that you guys can use. Let's see. You guys, there's another link right here, the educator downloads, where you can get your student guides, flyers, your coordinator manual, testing manuals. All right. And then I'm going to wrap up here shortly. If I wrap up, it's a couple reminders. Make lunch arrangements. Become good friends with your supervisor of the cafeteria or your lunch manager. I don't know their official title, but make sure you become friends with them and you go ahead and put that order in now so they can go ahead and start getting those sack lunches ready. That way our students have something to eat after the testing is completed. Also, remind students and testing staff of allowable calculators. On the math test, there's 2 parts. There's with calculator and without calculator. Make sure that the students know which calculators are appropriate. Most of the times we have the TI Inspire CX are allowed. Disable all bells and cancel all announcements during the testing time. Begin testing by 9:30 a.m. I have 8:30 a.m. testing for Barack Obama and Catherine Gilliam. Are they in here? Barack and Barack Gilliam. Are you guys still good for 8:30? Okay, then I'm going to call SAT today and make sure that you guys are good. Y'all haven't done that yet, right? Okay, perfect. City Lab, the City Lab in here, there's new. What time do you guys begin school? 9 o'clock? Okay, so we'll have a 9:30 administration for you. Anybody else need an 8:30 administration? All right. Ensure all students take the essay. Campuses will be invoiced for each exam where the student did not take the writing section of the test. So, of course, a lot of you guys who have invoices, most of them came for when the student got up and said, hey, I don't want to take the writing portion of the test. So some campuses get referrals, irregularity reports. I would say push it through your administration. Make sure your administration knows, the principal knows that this will happen if our students don't take the test. That way we can really, really influence our students to stay. Okay, sometimes they can be sneaky and sneak out the back door during the break because they don't want to take the test. Make sure they take the test so your campuses do not get invoiced. However, if this does happen, okay, just let me know. I'm working with the senior account executive to get this fixed. That way you guys aren't receiving those invoices, especially if you order for all 11th grade students. Okay, because that, honestly, that's ridiculous. Okay, that's my opinion. But if you ordered for 12th grade students, or you ordered for 11th grade students and you had a 12th grader who really wanted to take this test, and you let them take the test and they turn it in, that's on your campus, okay? However, like I said, those 10th grade students, if they're still listed as 10th grade students, but you know that they're 11th grade students, go ahead and change it before the 31st. Change it in your system before the 31st. That way you're not receiving those invoices. For everybody else who has those outstanding invoices, my department is going to take care of that for you. So you do not have to worry. I just want to validate those invoices before we pay. And then, last but not least, read the coordinator manual and complete coordinator training. Usually they'll send you a coordinating training link that you guys click on and complete. I believe that that's still the same practice that they have this year. So it usually comes late January if you haven't received it already. So about January 20 to the 31st.
Okay, Aaron, I'm making sure I understand. So if a student sits for the SAT, they don't do the essay, you do all multiple choice. They don't do the essay, you will get it.
Yes, based off of the contract. Because the contract is only there for SAT with essay. So according to legal, they don't take the essay portion. They now have taken the SAT without essay, which is not our contract. So therefore, your campus gets billed.
So can we say that again as
That's totally up to you. That's totally up to you. Yeah, I mean yeah. My thing would be make sure that they do it. Make sure that they do it, and don't give them an option. Don't even let them know that there's an option. That it's optional. That is an SAT College Board question.
Because if the kid just opens it and says, "Hi, my name is whatever," and turns it in.
I think that may constitute. However, that's a good question. So.
Because we're going to have the kids that do that.
I'll find that answer.
We can say at least sign, at least retro.
The question was, what constitutes an essay? So if this student really doesn't want to take an essay, but they just said, "Hi, my name is blah, 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 blah," they wrote on the paper, does that constitute as an essay? If I was judging, I would say yes, I know why they did that. But I'm not judging, so I'll make sure I get that answer. All right, and last but not least, guys, your students have the opportunity to go to these SAT boot camps. It is really hard to see the dates of these boot camps right there. But there are 8 locations, okay? There's 2-week sessions, they're test prep sessions, all right? You only have to go to 1, okay? You don't need to go to 2. So there's 2 weeks. There's February 22nd and February 29th. And they are 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., 4 hours at 8 locations. And it is for the students to get test prepped on SAT. Okay? It really does have some really good information to get them ready for this test. And it is provided by Princeton Review. The link for those students is at the bottom, the bit.ly link. And then also, if you click on the ACT, SAT Bootcamp flyer text at the top, that'll take you right to the real link. This is from Snipping Tool. So make sure you click on that if you want to make sure your students sign up. I'll be honest with you, there's only 35 spots per location. However, and they're available for 9th through 12th grade students. I've had about 50% or less show up. And this is 35 seats for 8 locations, 9th through 12th grade. So it's a big push to have these students utilize these opportunities to be prepared for their test.
I think maybe it's the parents. The kids don't want to, but the parents know about it.
Right. Right.
Might make sure they get there.
I'll be presenting to team board on Thursday, so I think the team board students will they'll start pushing this as well. So that is all I got. Any questions for me? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aaron, for coming out. Right now, Keisha is going to come up, and I know that there's some high school counselors that might be walking out as we transition to talk about TELPAS. I'm passing out two handout regarding what is being told to the special ed department. So, it's the back part of the brown paper that I failed to print, sorry. Yeah. Everyone, I hope you have signed in. In a minute, I'm about to email those who have not signed in, so just check your email during the meeting to make sure you didn't receive a friendly notice.
One quick interjection by Aaron.
I got one quick announcement. One last announcement. Those fee waivers that you ordered, guys, they will populate in the student's College Board account. Okay, so they're not going to be paper. The ones that you ordered will be populated in the student's College Board account. So if College Board approved them, then you go back and select which students get the fee waivers, and they'll populate in their account. Okay. I know counselors can order additional and get the actual paper documents or the paper fee waivers, but the ones that you ordered will populate in the student's College Board account. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. This is Keisha, and we're going to go through the first parts of your agenda a little bit faster. Most of y'all, it'll be a review for you, and then for the new people, you can hang out, and certainly we'll support you with extra questions. We know you've got open house, because I'm going to. Okay, so first, out of the gate, as always, these trainings do not excuse you from reading your manuals. So you need to follow all guidelines, and everything that you're getting is a lot of information. We will summarize this for you, but you still have to read all of the other supporting documentation on your own. Okay, so for the basics of TELPAS that affect most of you guys being high school, it's going to test all ELs in grades 2 through 12. So the clusters for multiple choice part will be affecting the 8-9 cluster, and your kids are going to do the 1 14 through 12. Okay. The online listening and the speaking components are going to be in a cluster for grades 9 through 12 by themselves, and then you're going to have a holistically writing component for the final and fourth domain. Okay, and I guess I'll say all the domains. The 4 domains for language literacy is going to be listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And that's what that covers. Okay, so who takes TELPAS? So it's going to be any EL student that we flag in grades K through 12. We're going to assess them once a year annually, and that includes those who parents decline the bilingual ESL program services, left kids on homebound, foreign exchange students, and those identified as left. So who we don't want to test are those who have exited the program. They should be coded as EO, and we'll have you some resources for that. And then your opt-in students will have codes of either 33, 44, 55, or 66. They are not EO. Okay, so some exceptions for certain domains could possibly be approved, and that's going to be under these conditions. So if we have an EL receiving special education services, the decision has got to come from the R committee in conjunction with the LPAC. So it's going to be a team thing and not just one group. Participation is considered on a domain-by-domain basis. So we've got to go through all 4, okay, and not just one and not the other 3. We've got to have documentation for what's good and what the issue is for anything we're trying to excuse. The reason for not testing the student has to be well supported and documented. The decision only applies for an EL receiving special ed services and who is not eligible for TELPAS opt. Okay, so we have another section for that. It's important that you know that special administration's other TELPAS online tests are available with TEA approval, and it may allow the student to participate. Okay, so we want to be careful with that because they do want those no later than 2 weeks up to the time of the test to make sure that you get it. All right, an EL from another Texas school district, state, or country who enrolls in DISD after the 24th. This is not an in-district transfer. Okay, this is somebody not in our schools. Okay, there will be an exception. We're not, if they, by the 24th, the first day of the TELPAS assessment window, and we're not going to be assessed by the receiving district or the holistically rated campaigns. Okay, we're not going to be responsible for that. And if you have newly enrolled kids in 212 who are required to do the TELPAS reading test and listening and speaking test, so we have no change from that. All right, so this is going to be an easy pop quiz. I'm going to try to speed up because we do have some longer sections. So, who takes TELPAS? What is EL? Okay, what is EL? English language. Okay, English language. All right, how many domains do we have for TELPAS? 4. Okay, yes or no, do we test the exited students who are done with the program? No. And how many times per year are we going to do TELPAS? Once. Easiest pop quiz. Okay, test security didn't change that much, but we still have to go over it to be compliant. You cannot help or directly assist students with answering the questions. So these are your serious irregularities, not much different from here, from your other tests. You can't tamper with the student responses. We can't give or provide unallowable assistance during the calibration activities. Okay, that includes taking notes, sharing answers, or providing answer sheets. You can't lie and falsify holistic ratings on the students' responses. You cannot fail to report an individual engaged in a violation of test security. So if you're a witness to something, you can't look the other way. And you cannot look at secure test content before, during, or after an administration without authorization from TEA. Okay, and for procedural irregularities, not much difference here. We have the issue of ineligible and IEP errors, so we're going to have some tips to try to avoid those and have a cleaner run. Improper accounting of secure materials, leaving the classrooms unattended in the labs, a student being issued test materials or a testing ticket that belongs to another student. That's a mess. Okay, students who were not prevented from using their phones or any other electronic devices, and they shared the content or cheating. Students were permitted to test beyond the allowed testing time. So for new people, TELPAS is not a timed test, okay, but you still have to be considerate of when they start. So if they miss the bus and mom has a flat, you don't want to start them 1 hour, before school is about to be over. Okay, so they may have to roll up to a different testing schedule. And again, it's over at the end of the school day. And finally, the test administrators, no change here, they cannot have their phones out. So you'll have some different processes for how they flag some of the call monitors or whatever for help. Okay, again, with test security, no one can receive or provide answers to the kids' profiles during the calibration activities. Okay, no one can use the answer sheets or notes that contain answers to complete the TELPAS activities. And everyone participating in the student test program is required to maintain and preserve the confidentiality of all secure test content, including the online assessment itself, the online testing tickets, the test booklets, the holistically rated components, the calibration activities, okay, and a TELPAS writing collection that is not assembled in accordance with the required assembly criteria. All is in regularity, and Felicia's going to drill down the data loss bar. Okay, the oaths are the general oaths, and these are posted on our website under the test security tab. It's about halfway down. It's a general oath. You will have your staff to sign this when you do your training. It's 2 pages long. This includes your principal, yourself, the administrators, technology staff, proctors, pretty much anybody who's going to be touched with helping you to test. Okay, it's a fillable PDF, but you can also print it out. And the test administrators are required to sign an oath for each test administrator. Okay, so don't have this done in advance. You'll do this when you're training. So again, if we had people for this last one, if they help with December, that's got nothing to do with this. They've got to sign a new oath for TELPAS. All right, and the last things, with this, we'll see, these are some trick questions. So y'all tell me if this is an irregularity or not. So first thing, if you take a writing sample from an academic teacher and they deliver it to you're the test coordinator, if they deliver a secure document, just put it in the mailbox in the front of the office where people sign in, is that an irregularity, yes or no? Yes. Okay, if a teacher records a rating of beginning on a writing sample, but get distracted and they put advanced on the roster, is that a test irregularity? Yes. Okay, if you have a non-LEP student who goes to the wrong group and they take a TELPAS test, is that an irregularity? Yes, definitely. But if you have a LEP student who is not administered TELPAS, they fall through the cracks, is that an irregularity? Yep. And if you got a teacher who uses notes from last year's calibration activities to complete this year's calibration activities to pass on the first go around, is that an irregularity? That's probably two irregularities because they got stuff from last year. And the last one, yes or no, if we administer the listening and speaking and reading online tests on the same day, is that an irregularity? No. And some of y'all with the larger populations might challenge you about that. You can do that. All right, so I'm going to turn this over to Felicia.
Okay, so I have the bulk of the TELPAS. I'm gonna time myself to try to cut this down in half. If you would like to follow along, this is going to be on our website, assessment.dallasisd.org. And once you click under coordinator resources, you will see the January PowerPoint. All right, we good? Okay, let's talk about the holistic rating requirements. I'm also going to give you some pages in your rater manual. So that'll help you go through to mark some key parts. All right, holistic rating training requirements. The rater, including a sub-teacher selected to rate an EL, must have the student in class at the time of the assessment window, be knowledgeable about the student's ability to use English in instructional and informal settings, hold a valid educational credential such as a teacher's certificate or permit, be appropriately trained in the holistic rating process, and rate the student in all eligible domains. Remember, a student is not permitted to be rated for some domains and another rater rate for the other domains. And then also remember that paraprofessionals cannot serve as raters. I did ask this question, but how many people have never, ever given the TELPAS? 1, 2, 3. Okay, don't panic. Right, all my veterans said yes, don't panic. We're gonna break it down, chunk it up, but I will tell you, if you wait until the very last minute, you will be panicking. Because in between this long TELPAS window, you've got STAR Alt, you've got SAT, and then the very next week is STAR. So it's better to start now, to start early than late. Oh, I forgot to start myself. I was cheating. Wait, I forgot to start my timer. Okay, here we go. All right. So let's talk about the new and returning raters. This is going to be on page 18 of your rater manual. So what is considered a new rater? For 2 through 12, individuals who have not completed the 2 through 12 holistic rating training requirements. That means they've never rated, basically. And then what is considered returning? Individuals who have completed training in previous years. Now, on that same page, it's going to tell you that test coordinators at your discretion, you may choose to have everyone do the online basic training. And I think that's going to be page 18, maybe second bullet. I'll try to follow myself. Page 19, thank you. Page 19, that top paragraph, it's going to tell you exactly what we said, at your discretion. So if you go in and you tell everyone they need to do online basic training, there's your proof. It's at your discretion. However, remember this, returning raters who haven't calibrated in the last 3 years, they have to complete the online basic training. All right? And that's that, if you look at is page 18, you're going to see this. And that's all that tells you. If I'm a new rater, I've never rated for TELPAS, I need to complete the online basic training. And then for returning raters, all raters will do calibration. New people, does that make sense? Awesome. And we'll talk about calibrations here on some of the upcoming slides. All right, so here is your calendar of events. This is actually at the very, very, very front of your manual. So you don't have to take a picture of it. It's like the first Roman numeral 2 or 3. So it gives you this list of the activities that are going on. Couple of things to point out. Today, actually, the assembling and verifying training has opened. So this is for those people that you will select to be your assemblers and verifiers. And we'll talk more about that in some of the other slides. January 27th, your basic training course for new K1 and 2 through 12 graders becomes available. 2 things happen February 10th. Your online calibration window opens, as well as that's the first date that you can begin collecting TELPAS writing samples. On the 10th. Yes. Now, what is the last date that the state says that you have to complete training? February 21st. But here's the thing you need to remember. None of this can happen until you completed your training. So it's better to get your training out of the way earlier, because my assemblers can't complete their training, my verifiers cannot, my raters, those who are new, they cannot complete the online basic training. None of that can occur until you've done, and your calibrations can't occur until you've done your campus training. And so that PowerPoint is ready. It will be posted probably Thursday. The reason why is because the window just opened for the assembling and verifying. Actually, the online training system just opened. And so we need to see just to make sure there aren't any changes before we push it out to you all. Now, the actual TELPAS online window is February 24th through April 3rd. So I know what's going to happen. You're going to say, I have all this time, all the way to April 3rd, to do this TELPAS. But remember, all those things I told you that come in between, plus you got to think about your lab numbers. All of those kiddos have to do writing collections, and you've got to run them through the lab somehow 2 times. One for reading, one for listening, speaking. So it actually is a lot. However, if you break it down, it's manageable. The other thing to remember, the other thing to remember is, and I think Keisha talked about it, or maybe I'm going to talk about it, but your campus, once this online window opens, you may get a new student, right? You will get a new student. There is no maybe. So if I wait until after this window to start my writing, who's responsible for the writing collection? So I'm sick of it. I know she's not going to do this. I don't start my writing until the end of February. And then 5 of my students, I like that she said, Julie said, why? 5 of my students moved to Lincoln. So who's responsible for the writing collections? Sickaville. You are. So the earlier you write, the earlier you start your writing collections, the better. All right? But they're very transient. You all know that. So.
I was gonna say you have spring break too.
And you have spring, yes, for spring break. Somebody say amen.
Amen.
All right. Okay. So now let's look at, I'm sorry, I'm flipping, I'm looking at my clock and I'm trying to look. TELPAS Administration Procedures Training. So again, as a part of TELPAS, just like any other test, you are required to train your verifiers, your assemblers, your raters, your online test administrators, anyone that is involved in the TELPAS process, you have to train them. In addition, graders receive training on the assessment procedures, such as how to assemble writing collections, how to record students' proficiency ratings, etc. So you want to train everyone, and our recommended date, even though the state says the 21st, I think we give you an earlier date maybe, somewhere in the PowerPoint, but remember, you want to train them, I think we said February 7th maybe. So you want to try to get them trained as quickly as possible, so that all of your other TELPAS activities like calibrations and things like that can occur. And again, the staff training presentation, our goal is to post it by Thursday, but remember we are in training Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, so I'm just updating it between trainings. So now let's talk about what the online basic training, this is going to be in your manual page 12. The online basic training we talked about is going to be required for all new raters who haven't complete, or those raters who have not calibrated in the last 3 years. So it provides instruction on how to use the PLD rubrics, as well as it gives raters practice rating the students. And just to let you know, the approximate completion time for this, for grades 2 through 12, is 2 to 3 hours. Now, test coordinators, again, at your discretion, you can require anyone to do the basic training. And this is our recommended date, is that they should complete that training by February the 7th. Once the raters submit their certificate of successful completion, they're going to keep a copy for themselves and then give you a copy. Now, you will, I'm sure you've got new teachers on your campus this year, and maybe they successfully rated and calibrated last year. So if they have a copy of their certificate and you choose at your discretion, you may say that, well, they did the online basic last year as well as rating, so I'm not going to require them to do the online basic. But who does calibration? Everybody. Everyone has to complete the monitored calibration. When and where do raters take the online basic training course? So depending on your campus arrangements, your raters can do it at home, they can do it during their planning period, they can do it on the weekends, because the thing about the online basic training is they can do a part, they can save, and then go back to it. It's not the same for calibrations. So it's going to be up to you how you want them to do the online basic training. But again, just remember the online training system does allow the raters to access the training from any computer that meets the minimum requirements. And so prior to creating a TELPAS online training center account, raters are required to read an online statement and affirm that they will complete the rating activities independently. Just remember that it's a violation for any state assessment procedure to discuss or record or share answers, activities to the rating practice and calibration activities. And so that's why they give you that online statement. So I will say, if your teachers choose someone does the online calibration, they record the answers, and everyone is finishing in 5 minutes and successfully finishing, it will send a red flag to TEA, and they'll be contacting us and we'll be contacting you. So just remind them that that's why it gives them that little statement at the beginning stating that they will complete the activities independently. Questions about the online basic? All right, let's talk about calibration, because this is the one that everyone is going to do. They talk about calibrations on page 20 of your manual. So again, it says any grader required to take the online basic training course must do so in a monitored calibration setting. Start thinking now, who's going to be the proctor for your monitored calibration settings? Is it you? Is it an administrator? But you want it to be someone, I guess, of authority to ensure that is somebody laughing? Okay. All right. I was like, okay. You want to be someone? Okay. My bad. Just to make sure that they are taking it seriously. I know I'm on one today, I'm sorry. So this is required for all of your raters. The raters will use the PLDs, and I keep saying PLDs. In Appendix A, you'll find that rubric that your raters will use to complete, to rate their students as well as complete the calibration activities. And so they will use these, they'll get 2 opportunities to calibrate on their assigned grade cluster. For high school, it'll be a grade 9 through 12 cluster. And so I think there's some slides in there, so I won't go too much into that part. But the raters will be given a passcode by the session proctor in order to access the calibration. What happens is you're going to give us the days, give us 3 days that you're going to do your calibration. So we'll push out codes to you via email, I think for the week or for the day. If your raters are going to calibrate today, you'll have it'll say set 1, set 2. You'll use set 1 because no one has done calibrations. Now, everyone passes except for 2 teachers. 2 teachers have to come in on your calibration day 2, and they're going to do the attempt number 2. You would have to use set 2 for that day. They will not be able to access their calibration activities using set 1 because this is their attempt number 2. So just always remember that the codes are specific to the day, and you have a set 1 code for anyone who's brand new to the calibration set, and a set 2 code for anyone who is needing to take the second attempt. Graders have to complete the calibration activities individually, and again, remember it's in a monitored setting. They will need headphones, just as a FYI. And then the window opens February 10th. I think there are parts that it'll for the listening speaking, maybe. I mean, not the listening speaking, I'm sorry, but it may read parts to them. I don't know, but it just says it. It just opened today, so I created me an account to go through it. Yeah, but I haven't needed headphones yet. But it says they may need them, so just keep that in mind. All right, so the calibration activities. Each campus has to designate 3 days. We're going to ask you that you capture those dates using this Google form, much like you did your ACP schedule. So you would just go in and give us the 3 dates. And then calibration codes are going to be emailed to the test coordinator to be kept secure. Please plan in advance for changes. And just remember, as I stated, you're going to have a different calibration code each day. All calibration activities should be complete by Friday, February 28th. So please contact us if there are extenuating circumstances as to why you would need additional calibration dates. For the monitor calibration setting, we've talked about all raters will start with set 1. If they are successful, a certificate will be available in the scoring summary tab of the TELPAS Online Center. Remember, you always want them to print a copy and keep it for themselves and then give you a copy. If raters are unsuccessful on set 1, they must go back and complete the online basic training. That's their refresher. And then they can attempt set 2. They should never do set 1 and set 2 on the same day. So when you do your monitor calibration setting, you only want to give them set 1. If you put up both sets, they're going to do both. I promise you. And then after completing the calibration set, raters immediately see their results and annotations explaining the correct ratings. Raters will need at least 1 to 2 hours to complete the calibration set. They have to finish a calibration set once it started. So unlike the basic training, they cannot come back to that part. They have to complete it all in one day. And then it does tell you in the manual that raters need to score at least 70%. When and where do raters complete calibrations? In a monitored session. That is going to be established by you all on the campus level. Just remember, everyone, new and returning, has to calibrate. Monitored calibration sessions take place during the school day, after school, or as part of your professional development. And most raters will need the 1 to 2 hours to calibrate. So what happens if a rater is unsuccessful? Does that exempt them from having to rate students? No, it actually just means that it's going to inconvenience someone else, because what happens is one of the raters who successfully calibrated, they will have to serve in that cluster, they will have to serve as the additional rater for that rater that was unsuccessful. So you may tell them that failing does not mean you do not get to calibrate. The additional rater has to be in the same cluster. And then here's another thing. If there's a discrepancy. So if I'm the teacher that failed and I should think the student is intermediate and the additional rater who successfully calibrated thinks they are advanced, which rating do I go with? Advanced, because that's the person who successfully calibrated. Assembling and verifying grades 2 through 12 writing collections online training. This online course on assembling and verifying the writing collection is available in the TELPAS training system. Test coordinators will identify those who are assemblers and those who will serve as verifiers. Depending on the campus arrangement, verifiers may either complete this 1-hour course during school hours, after school, or on weekends. It is available to them, and they can, I believe that they can stop and come back to it. Only certified individuals can serve as verifiers, and then remember that verifiers cannot be raters. Raters cannot be verifiers and vice versa. Our recommended date is February the 7th. Once they complete their training, they'll also get a certificate. And they will keep one and give one to you. Again, raters cannot serve as verifiers. And then prior to creating the TELPAS Online Training Center account, raters are required to read an online statement and affirm that they will complete the activities independently. Whew, I'm not getting through this, y'all. This is a lot of slides. TELPAS verifier responsibilities. They must be certified individuals. They can be teachers, librarian counselors, or administrators. Verifiers cannot be paraprofessionals or individuals who are also graders. Verifiers will complete the online assembling and verifying grades 2 through 12 collections training. What a verifier does is they manage the writing collections. They check that the writing collection meets all of the requirements. If one or more samples does not, the sample will be returned to the teacher. So you verify after you do the writing collection, then you verify, then you rate. The reason is you don't want to rate samples that don't meet the requirements, right? Perfect. So provide each writing collection, the writing collection cover sheet, and that can be found in Appendix B of your manual, as well as the writing collection verification checklist. Campuses must have at least one verifier, but it's suggested to have more than one, or at least train a backup verifier. Whew. Okay.
So you write,
Questions so far?
you verify, then you
I
rate.
don't have a minute left to do this slide. Okay. I know. I'm just trying to speed it up, y'all. All right, any questions so far?
And then they do the
I
online.
know some of my new people, it may seem like I'm going fast, but please know we will be here to answer questions for you. So holistic rating and writing collections, let's talk about those. What is required? You need 5 writing samples are required for each collection. And this is going to be on page 22 of your manual for those of you that are looking following along. In each collection, there must be at least 1 writing sample that elicits the use of past tense, and then 2 academic samples, either from math, science, or social studies. Again, writing assigned on or after February 10th may be considered. So anything that they've written before February 10th is not eligible for the writing collection for TELPAS. Each campus is to assign dates when writing samples are done. All writing collections should be completed by March 2nd. Remember, you need to give yourself time. Once those samples are written, they have to be rated. Then you have to give yourself time to enter all of those ratings in the online system. So, I know Spruce has about 1,200 students. She's got to enter all 1,200 of those ratings. See? She's got to enter all 1,200 of those ratings in the online system. So you need to give yourself time. Again, that's why we're saying the earlier you start writing, the earlier they can be verified and rated, and you receive them back. Yes?
When you're saying 2 academic writing samples, math and science.
So they can start writing.
But those
February
academic
10th. I'm
cross
just having to make sure I'm doing it. They
So
can't
I'm
write
gonna
early
give you
than
some,
February 10th.
give you some,
And they
you
can't
got some
test
slides in there.
early on, then online. on
Yes, ma'am.
February
What was
10th.
the date that you just gave?
So from
By
now
March
to
what?
February 10th,
Thank you.
I
March
get all
2nd.
my training done.
And I believe this is in your planner,
February 10th.
your TC
Right.
planner as well. We give you those these same suggested
And
dates.
then by this date, I have to have this all.
All right. You just asked me, ma'am, about different type of samples. So, in your manual, pages
23 to 25. They give you examples of possible writing samples. So they give you some, example 1, basic descriptive writing. Example 2, writing about a familiar process. Example 3, writing that elicits the use of past tense, because remember, past tense is one of their required samples. Then it gives you some examples of personal narratives and reflective pieces. Examples of expository and other extended writing on a topic from language arts. And then expository or procedural writing from science, math, or social studies. Now, it is up to your campus to determine your topics. These are just examples that TEA has provided to you. It's up to you. I told the other group, I ended up letting my department chairs give me topics. We wrote in every subject, and they gave me topics based on the blueprint and something that they were currently working on.
It's April 28th, what's that?
Now,
It's my last day.
on page 25 of your manual, it gives you some tips for good writing collections. A couple of things to keep in mind: encourage students to take their time and write in as much detail as they can. In each collection, include writing tasks that allow students to show what they can do. Also include some writing tasks that stretch and push students' limits so that you can see the full extent of their language abilities. Remember, this is not an academic ability test. This is a language. It is tested. It is trying to review their language acquisition. Okay? Most importantly, what not to include. This is going to be on page 26 of your manual, and it tells you, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but just a couple to keep in mind. Papers containing language directly copied from a textbook. You should not include those because, again, we're assessing the student's language ability. If they're copying directly from a textbook, it doesn't assess their language. Papers in which the student relies heavily on a dictionary or thesaurus. And then you may want to put a star beside this one, papers that show a teacher's corrections. Because again, if are peer corrections, parent corrections, any of that, those should not be eligible for your writing collection. So make sure, and this is going to also be in your campus training PowerPoint. So make sure that you go through these and your verifiers understand as well, because when they're verifying the samples, it's going to ask them some of these questions. So here are the required forms that you will need. I will tell you this. Once you assemble a writing collection, that means putting on the cover sheet and adding the verification checklist and adding in those 5 samples, it becomes secure. And it tells you that in the manual. So every student writing collection has the 5 pieces. 1 which has to be what? Past tense. 2 that have to be from what? An academic, from math, science, or social studies. And then 2 additional samples. So it needs 5 samples. Then you have a writing collection cover sheet, and then the verification checklist for your verifiers. So now that's why it's important to determine who's going to do the assembly. You may have the raters assemble, but they can't verify. All right? Something that's new, it says 3 people could potentially sign the cover sheet. And if you flip to Appendix B, you can see bigger versions of these. But you can have the teacher, if that's not the TELPAS grader, or typically you'll just have your TELPAS grader sign, because the teacher has to know, the teacher should know the students because they should be in their class. So you have your TELPAS grader, and then the additional TELPAS grader is applicable only if you have to assign an additional grader because the teacher didn't successfully complete calibration. This is what the required form will look like. So if I have 30 students assigned to me, I'm going to need this grading roster. Remember Keisha talked to you about, if I went back, see where it has that little grading in the corner? So that's where the teacher puts, the rater puts the grading. And then once I have my group of students, I'm going to record all of their information on this grading roster. This rating roster is secure once you start entering student information. Now, we will put, we will have a blank copy on our website under assessments.
and you go to TELPAS, there, you'll see one that says K through 1 because they rate everything. When you look at the 2 through 12 rating roster, we're going to have the listening, speaking, and reading kind of grayed out. Why? They take it online. Now, if you have a student who has special circumstances and they get TEA approval for a holistic listening, speaking, or holistic reading for whatever reason, then you would want to use the roster that allows the teacher to put all of the student information. And so the teacher will complete the rating for the writing, and then in the far corner, it says rater information. And if you look at the bottom, it's going to tell you the relationship with the rater, and then I believe it asks, did you collaborate? And then once the rater has done this for all of the students, then they would sign the TELPAS rater, and if they had an additional rater because they didn't successfully calibrate, they sign next, and then the campus principal signs. As a reminder, B is for beginning, and it tells you in the top part of the roster what the ratings are. I is intermediate, A is advanced, H, not AH. H is advanced high. X would be our decision. Extenuating circumstances should be used rarely. Please make sure you contact us before those are marked extenuating circumstances for whatever reason. All right. The required forms for TELPAS. Random audits will be made this spring to ensure ratings are accurate and have been appropriately documented, and Keisha's going to talk about that shortly. The CTC will use the rating roster to enter the holistic ratings into Pearson Access Next. So you, the CTC, will get all of these rosters, and then this is what you use to enter those students into the online system. Okay? The CTC has to confirm that the ratings match the writing cover sheet and other PLDs. All ELs are listed on a rating roster, including students receiving special ed services who have an art exception from one or more domains, students whose parents have waived services because parent denials do test for TELPAS, and ELs who are homebound students. Whew. Questions? Michael.
I just have one. How would you suggest that we staff our raters to complete rating all of these in a timely manner? I've been told that we're not allowed to use subs anymore to create a group of raters. So before school, after school, they have activities. PLCs, they have lesson plans to write, and then their own conference period is protected by law. So what would you suggest?
As far as the raters?
Yeah.
They won't
So,
let us use PLCs to do it.
You mean to train them?
No.
No,
No,
to do
to
the
use
rating.
rate.
Needs to rate.
Oh,
So let me ask you this, because I guess it depends on how you set up your campus plan. So for my campus plan, all core teachers were rating, and they only had like 10 students. So we did it after school. If you have, I know a lot of campuses, they have all the language arts teachers are the raters, and so they have considerably more, hundreds. So I guess it would depend on how you set up your campus plan. Ladies, how would you find time? How would you allocate time for raters?
I would agree with you that you may have to get more raters to do it instead of just focusing in on one set of teachers. Like, for example, your English teachers, maybe you have to get everybody involved to make the workload more manageable, because it is a campus process that has to happen. So
We do that, but we still have the same problem.
I don't know, I have a suggestion. This is a time where you just have to tell your principal and talk to the APs and be like, this is a state mandated test, and we might have to give up one PLC to complete this, or maybe 2 PLCs, because this is a state mandated test. Yes, PLCs are great, and we have those requirements from this district, but it's a state mandated test.
And it does impact accountability, correct?
It does.
Participation?
Yes,
It impacts accountability.
So
That's
I
where
think-
you get them.
That's where your
That's
principal.
where you have to tell
I
them.
think your principal will understand that when it's going to get them on accountability, and it's a state mandated test. Period. It's a state mandated test. That's just my,
Yeah, thank
and
you
that's
for-
how I
that's a great
approach it. I mean,
suggestion,
that's
yeah.
how I approach it with my principal, is like, it's state mandated.
Yeah,
So
and that's
I
a
need
great
the time, I need the,
Right.
That's a great suggestion. They tend to listen when you say those.
Yeah, when you put those
Buzzwords.
2 words, yes. Awesome. Yes, ma'am, you had a question at the back in front of you? Yes. No, we're good. Okay. Miko, will you, no? Okay. All right, any other questions? All right.
Okay, we're hustling. These next 9 slides are gonna be pretty much a checklist for you guys. You've got an earful and a mouthful of a lot of what this test is about. It's going to test and what the responsibilities of your staff is. So your challenge is gonna be to put it all together and be the oil and engine and make it work. So you've got to come up with campus testing procedures for your school. You've got to plan for the administration of the online test and how you're going to enter the ratings that come from that. So we just had some dialogue with some ideas. We've got to keep track of the tests for students who move. So some of y'all have transient families that are here, that are there. And if you have an EL who enrolls in Dallas before the 24th, circle that date in your planner in 1 or 2 different places, okay? We're responsible for everything, okay? Afterwards, we're only responsible for the online part if we get somebody outside of Dallas on the 24th. Now, if it's just in district, we're gonna take care of our kids, and we can look up information for you if it's not clear what the student has done or not done from out of state or other districts. We can help you with that. So it's important for test coordinators to have a good working knowledge of the training. So after you leave here, you're still going to have some homework to do, to read up on some things and just put some thought into how you're not going to be behind the 8 ball to get this done. So you've got to train your raters and make sure everyone knows what they're supposed to do, how to do it, and why. You've got to make sure your new and returning raters understand what training they're supposed to take and what cluster they're going to be assigned to. You're going to make sure that all raters complete their training requirements. We're going to check up on them. You'll have a way to do that in the system. And you're going to train TELPAS, all administrators separately before February, well, at least by February 21st. Okay? Now, we have given you a template to help with your plan, and we need to get the 3 dates that you're going to come up with for your calibration activities. And you're going to send it to this link, which is a Google Doc. And you're going to verify your student data. We'll give you some tidbits about that. So we're going to increase probably our communication. So definitely look for your TC support emails. You're going to have to make sure that ELs are enrolled in the TELPAS administration. We don't want anybody falling through the cracks here. And the demographic information should reflect the student's status at the time of testing. And again, years in U.S. school data is going to be critical. So we have to get that right. And your LPAC chairs are going to be first up with access to where that is in the most current updates. Okay, so students, we're going to do a massive upload district-wide at one time on February 4th. Shalenta already mentioned that. So we're going to do it again. I think it worked well last year, but we created sessions for you guys, and they made pretty good sense, and everybody was able to follow with that in the system. But it's not going to be a one and done as far as keeping up with your ELs. So you're going to still be telling us ELs who come to your school and register, or those who leave, okay, on or after February 10th, okay? And we do have a small group of analysts who will be working behind the scenes, and we're going to continue to register and remove students every week until the end of the window. So we're doing our best to keep this as clean as possible, but it's just going to be a lot of moving parts. So for kids that withdraw, coordinators need to remove those students from the sessions first. Okay, so that's going to be online, and we'll go over that next month when we have our labs for setting up sessions and how we're going to work with that. We need y'all to confirm that the students are coded as left before you register them as a new student in the Pearson system. Okay, and for brand new students, we are only going to enroll those in the domains that we are required to rate. So again, we're going to be helping y'all out quietly in the background. And for kids who withdraw, we're only going to remove the domains that we're not required to rate. Okay, so I had a question. Well, how do I know how many students I have? I'm not going to switch to the online, so I'm just going to tell y'all how to do it. You're pretty good now in PowerSchool. So you're going to log into PowerSchool, and you can just write these 3 or 4 steps on the back of your agenda. You're gonna log into Power School.
Keisha, you said now, it's the first part of the sample.
Oh, it is, okay, so you're gonna log into Power School. You're gonna go into your system report. Okay, that's gonna be the menu on the left. And then at the bottom, the middle bottom, it'll be a DISE, EL. What we call it, it's the EL testing roster? Yeah, okay, and then when that comes up, you have 3 options for how to run it. We suggest to use it by last name, and that'll cover all grades. And it might take a long time to run, and you'll get a report that'll be at the bottom of your web browser, and then when you open it, it'll be extracted into Excel, and then you can sort and look at the codes. Okay, so we got from the Valley Sales Department the flags for what students to look for that are testing and not testing, and that you need to clean up if something is not updated. Okay. So with your LPAC chairs, we're depending on them. They've been through probably 3 or 4 intensive trainings last fall. So we're depending on them. We're going to collaborate with them as far as your left students. You've got site, school, salaries, fees that you may not be aware of in the intake process. If there are some hard exemptions, which include domains that a student is exempt from, we need information about that. And if they have some accommodations required for TELPAS online reading. Okay, so that has to be documented. If you identify a verifier, they have to be abreast of the verifying the writing collections, and you got to follow correctly the instructions for the TELPAS validity audit. So we've got another slide about what that's going to be about. And if anybody needs a special administration or TELPAS, usually that's going to work out into a printed test, but it could be some other concerns. We need that by February 21st. So jump on that to make sure if it's something important, the student will be set up for success to get what they need to do well in the test. Okay, so with the training center, again, we've already talked about this. The bottom line here is everybody, when they log in, is going to have to create a brand new account. So they made some upgrades in their systems, and it happens to us all the time. We got a new system, so you need a new password. So they're going to have to re-register and create brand new accounts. If your returning graders do not have proof where they passed, if they did not save their certificates on their flash drive or somewhere else, or it's on my teacher laptop, desktop, and it's gone, it's erased, well, they can't prove it and give it to you, they're going to have to do the basic training all over again. But for going forward, they have made some upgrades, and they commit that they will keep the new certificates for those who pass on file, where they can register them with their programs. Okay, we suggest them trust that. They need to keep in their training documentation just to be safe. All right, campuses, again, you guys, you still need to file printed copies of these as backup. Okay, so if you have the unfortunate case of students getting expelled and they have to go and be at the DAP, that is Stephanie here again? Okay, well, the coordinator attended the middle school meeting, all right? So what's going to happen if they withdraw and have to go to DAP and they've completed their writing samples, okay? You're going to rate those writing samples, okay? You're not off the hook just because they're at DAP. But if they withdraw and go to DAP before completing any of it, then Stephanie Vick will facilitate getting all of that done, okay? And she's going to have her own team for that. So Stephanie Vick, and y'all know her by now, she's going to have system access to everybody's school. So don't mess with any sessions, okay, that she's created, and she'll probably have a different naming convention so that you know that it's her. So if you see something extra that we didn't create, just leave it there, and that's the purpose of it, so we can capture that student. And again, we'll be giving you updates from her. So she works hard, and she does a good job of keeping y'all in the loop. Now, as far as the validity and reliability of TELPAS ratings, every district is required to implement some kind of process to ensure that our stuff is reliable, and that we're giving true information for the TELPAS ratings. So the extra thing we're going to do in Dallas ISD is we're going to require 5% of every campus writing collection in grades 2 through 12 to be rated again by a second rater. So you have to compete 5% based on your population. And anybody who is not successful on the first calibration attempt has to complete online test training before doing test 2. It's at 2. And the deal is, people would just sit, just go on and on and on, and then they mess up and lock themselves out, okay, just in one sitting, and you don't want to do that, okay? And then at the bottom here, we've got a disclaimer, all collaboration and second raters are important. Remember, ultimately, that the original TELPAS rater designated by the campus is the official rater, and ultimately responsible for the ratings assigned. We also, I don't know if it's happened in a long time, but we've been audited as a district by TEA where they've asked for writing samples, and it was a bad situation when those could not be introduced. Okay, so for the TELPAS tutorials and the speaking sessions to students, okay, again, everybody's got to do it in grades 2 through 12, and we need to have that done by February 21st. So the reason is, if they're new and still kind of getting used to PCs based on where they're from, we want them to be familiar with the computer and testing and how to move around. And we don't want this to be done 10 minutes before the test and then they not do well and be nervous. Okay? Headsets, if you haven't had time, start checking those out, count how many you have, and test them out one by one. So if they're staticky, they've got bad wiring and they're not working, we want to trade those out. Okay. And then to do that, there is a section within the TestNav app that says practice test link. All right, so it is laborious, but again, it's too much work for y'all to do. And then we've had some poor quality where they couldn't decipher what the student was saying on the listening part, or we need them to be able to hear from the system. Okay.
All right, now some of you may say you do not have TELPAS alternate, and you probably don't, especially like our specialty schools. However, we all are going to be trained on TELPAS alternates because you never know where you might end up one day, or you might end up at your campus one day, and they still may have to take the test, okay? So TELPAS alternate, you need your that packet with that says participation. I have mine up here, I think. It kind of got mixed up. This packet right here, with your TELPAS alternate stuff, it says participation requirements on the front. This is the information that you will use for that. TELPAS alternate was developed a couple years ago in results of the Every Student Succeeds Act. Basically, the federal government told states that they had to develop an assessment that will address those students with significant cognitive disabilities. So that's why TELPAS alternate was developed. Students must meet specific eligibility criteria to participate in the TELPAS alternate. What are those specific criteria? In your TELPAS alternate manual, which is also starting on page 10, in here, this is your TELPAS alternate manual. And here's the link to resources that you can use and send your TELPAS alternate teachers to, so that they can get as familiar as possible with the actual assessment. All ELs who will participate, we don't have an elementary in here, right? So K1 students, they don't participate because it is they are holistically assessed. But grades 2 through 12, they do participate if they meet participation requirements. Students must be classified as an EL in the PEAM system and an R committee in conjunction with the LPAC. So here's your question, working together, R committee in conjunction with the LPAC must review the participation requirements for TELPAS alternate to make the assessment determination. For grades 3 through 12, students meet the participation requirements for STAR Alt 2. What are those participation requirements? These are the questions that they have to go through when they're answering. Number 1, is the student identified as a left in PEAM? Does the student have a significant cognitive disability? Does the student require specialized, extensive support to access the grade level curriculum and environment? Does the student require intensive individualized instructions in all instructional settings? Does the student access and participate in grade level teach through prerequisite skills? Is the assessment determination based on the student's significant cognitive disability and English learner status and not on extenuating factors? So they will answer those questions. If they answer appropriately, then the student can participate. If they do not, then this is not the test for the student. Students may be exempt from, excluded from TELPAS alternate based on two criteria: if the no authentic academic response or the medical exception. And here, if the grades 3 through 12, that's you. If the R committee determines that the student meets the eligibility criteria for STAR All2 and qualifies for NAR or medical exception, the student will not be required to participate in TELPAS alternate. However, as the test coordinator, you must go in, or if you have someone else who goes in and does the put in your the transcribing process, they must go in and document a NAR or a medical exception. Okay, you just don't say, oh, they don't participate, so I'm leaving them blank. No, you have to go in and document it. Again, the TELPAS alternate is the holistic inventory that assesses the language domains of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. It's aligned to the ELPS and is based on alternate proficiency level descriptors created to address the specific needs of this population. Here's an example. The test questions in TELPAS alternate are called observable behaviors. That means the test administrator is observing over time to see how a student has performed with the English language. They are descriptions of student behaviors in the language domains of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Test administrators consider how well students understand and use English in a variety of social and academic situations. So you see this example here, the S stands for speaking. The student may, A said the student may or may not attend to group discussions. B, the student imitates or attempts to imitate words heard in group discussions. Or C, shares information in group discussions using a high frequency, high need vocabulary words. D, shares information in group settings using a small number of combined words. Or E, shares detailed information in group settings. So the test administrator will bubble in the correct response for that particular student.
Regardless of whether it's because of their English ability or their disability. Because it may be their disability that causes them to only use high frequency words, and not their English level.
Yeah, they'll be able to know it over time because, and then think about I understand what you're saying right there. So they should, based on knowing, being very, very familiar with the student, they should be able to answer those questions. We'll talk more. Okay. Here is your proficiency levels. They start out over awareness all the way through basic fluency for the kids. And you see how it overlaps with the TELPAS proficiency levels, which starts out at the beginning all the way over to advanced high. So basically, you're trying to see how proficient that student is in the language. Okay. For each language domain, TELPAS measures 5 levels or stages of increasing English language proficiency versus the 4 levels in TELPAS. Some TELPAS alternate proficiency levels overlap of the TELPAS proficiency levels. By stretching out the beginning and intermediate levels of TELPAS, TELPAS alternate provides more granular information about English language proficiency for students with significant cognitive disabilities. This can help educators more specifically assess growth and target instruction from year to year. Who can administer your TELPAS assessments? This is important. Test administrators may include special education instructors, bilingual or ESL teachers, other service providers who regularly work with the students. That means if I don't regularly work with the student, should I be assessing the student? No. Test administrators must have a high level of interaction and familiarity with the students, and they must hold valid education credentials such as Texas Educator certificates and permits, and they must sign the security oath, following training, and before handling secure materials. Lastly, districts must assign the same test administrator for all domains. That means that I can't rate the listening and speaking, and you come along and rate the reading and writing. It must be one person that rates all 4 domains across for the student. Paraprofessionals, can they serve? Yes, they may serve as test administrators or assistants only if they are trained in test administration procedures. They sign an oath, and they must be supervised either directly or indirectly by a certified professional, okay? So they can serve. So there may be times where the TA in a unit may end up serving as a TELPAS alternate test administrator. The test security, these are some additional security things that must happen with the TELPAS alternate. You will continue to follow all the others that's in your manual as well as found in our DCCR. TELPAS alternate test materials are not secure until a student's name or observational information has been added as part of the holistic inventory. For example, when the teacher writes the student's name or other personal information on the paper inventory and begins to take notes, that document must be kept confidential, okay? You will check out your materials to the TELPAS alternate test administrators daily, and they will return them to you daily. They don't get to keep them, okay? And you will check them out and they will return them to you, and you will make sure that the materials are locked up and secure. Here are the steps when they will complete the TELPAS alternate. First, they will start with one student and one domain. They will start with the Kedra, and then they will go to listening first, because I think it's in alphabetical order: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Then they will review each of the 10 observable behaviors for that particular domain, along with the 5 descriptions of student performance. It is not necessary to consider observable behaviors in the order they appear. So that means I don't have to do L1, L2 in that order. I can do L10, L5. They can do it however they want to do it, as long as they get them all done. And then they consider one observable behavior at a time. They are to think about the description that most closely matches the student's performance most consistently. Think about how well the student has demonstrated the ability to understand and use English in the context of skills the student is learning. And think about how well the student was able to understand and use English when practicing these skills in a classroom setting. Remember, these are our students with our most significant cognitive disabilities. Step 4, they're going to mark the bubble A, B, C, D, or E, just as in this example. And mark only one bubble. Please make sure they don't mark it sometimes to get off. Make sure they only mark one bubble. And then after finishing all 10 observable behaviors for the first domain, they will continue to each of the other domains. Y'all got me on time? Okay, I'm behind time. Say period, I'm sorry. No, it's fine. I'm going faster. Once the entire inventory is complete, the observations must be transcribed into the assessment management system. Okay, it's done on paper, but it must be transferred into the system. So you have to determine, are you going to do it, or are you going to assign someone to do it? How many of you do it yourself? Okay, so I guess the rest of you assign someone else to do it. So if you assign someone, you have to give them a role in the assessment management system. This is what the screen will look like when it's time to enter into the assessment management system. So whomever is entering, either yourself or the test administrator you designated them to, they will go in and they will click A, B, C, D for all their domains, L1, L, S, R, and W. And then after they've done it, they need to save and verify. Why are they saving and verifying? Why do we say being verified? That's not a trick question, y'all.
You say that, then you double check, make sure.
Exactly, you save it so they stay in there, right? And you verify to make sure that you put the right things in there. Because once you save and verify, then you're able to submit. If you submit, can you go back and change? No. So that's why we save and verify, because if you made an error, we want to be able to correct it at that time, okay? So please make sure you emphasize that to your test administrators if you give them the task of entering their information, all right? There are some areas where you won't, it's called do not score because the student was not able to participate. One is extenuating circumstances, and we'll talk about that in just a second. We already talked about the medical exception and the no authentic response. So this, remember I told you in the beginning, there is a way for you to come over and mark it, so this is where you will mark it. And it lets the computer know, the system to know not to score it. For extenuating circumstances, if this happens, this score code is rare and should be made in consultation with TEA. That means that you have to contact us so that we can contact TEA and talk about what's going on at your campus, okay? So that's why we recommend if you have a student that's been out, you know, they're in and out for whatever reason, they're out, like the parents say, well, we're not gonna send them today, and they just come and go, whatever. Try to get them assessed when they're there, okay? When they're there, they're with them. So the student is unable to be assessed in all four domains due to extenuating circumstances. And this is another example. Student was hospitalized or became sick and didn't return until after the testing window closed. And the test administrator was able to successfully rate the student in one or a couple of domains, but not in all domains, okay? So this will be an example. And we already talked about the medical exclusion in your page 6 and 8. You have the medical exception as well as the no authentic academic response of NAR forms in your packet that you can refer to, and that the people that's sitting in the R's, they should be using. If the student is present, they should be assessed or marked with the appropriate do not score codes, okay? Here is some additional information. There's a glossary explaining how some terms are used in observable behavior. It's provided in Appendix B in the back of the TELPAS alternate manual. For the listening domain, information should be presented to the students orally, except for the students who receive their input through sign language. For the writing domain, students using argumentative and alternative, argumentative and alternative communication as expressive communication must use symbols that are combined with printed letters or words beginning with the early independence level. Additional resources are found on TEA's website at this address, so make sure you bookmark it and share it with your staff. Now, I did that fast, y'all, right? I was trying to hurry up and get y'all done, but we're not done. I'm gonna give you a few moments. Take out your TELPAS campus assessment plan template right here. Some of y'all already start filling those out. Don't stop on the clip. I'm gonna stop on the clip. Our middle school really appreciated this opportunity to be able to come up, start jotting down your ideas of what is TELPAS going to look like on your particular campus. You have to plan to be successful. If you fail to plan, that means you plan to fail, correct? So let's go ahead and jot down your ideas on this template. We do have this template available on our website on assessment.dallasisd.org. Under assessment, go to TELPAS and you fill in, you can type it in. According to your planner, we are recommending that you share your plan with your principal by Friday of this week. That way, you said, shh, so man, I'm telling you, got a whole lot going on. I'm trying to keep y'all on pace so you won't become overwhelmed. I promise you have a whole lot going on. Do y'all have a whole lot going on? Do y'all wear a lot of hats? So listen, follow what we're telling you. bite-sized pieces, don't overwhelm yourselves. Because you might have like 700 kids, that don't seem like a lot to some, but it is a lot. Y'all crazy right here, that's a lot. Seriously, so go ahead and go through this, and we're gonna come back up in just a few minutes. Okay, we're gonna come back together, because I do know some of y'all are feeling a little antsy. So tonight, if you have time, if you have to go to parent conference line, I don't know if you do, if you don't, some may, some you may not on your role. So if you do have to go, you have time tonight, since you're there anyways, you might want to jot down your ideas and finish your plan off. I know y'all have a lot of this meeting today, so Charlotte is going to come up and close you out, but I do want to let you know that at least you already talked about our plan, your PowerPoint to train your staff using both TELPAS. There's one for TELPAS and TELPAS alternate will be posted. So please make sure that you use that and update it as necessary. Thank you for your time, and I'm giving it over to Charlotte.
Okay, just a few more announcements or reminders, just debriefing on what we just talked about. Calibrations, remember, please do not let them complete 2 sets in one day. Again, if you do that, it's going to cause issues. If they fail the first one, make them do the online basic training. I'm going to wait until everybody is finished with the side conversation. Okay. There are no sessions for TELPAS off, so we get a lot of phone calls during the testing window about, I can't remember how to set up a session. For TELPAS off, there's no sessions. For TELPAS, there are sessions, we set them up. If a student transfers, you have to remove them out before we can move them to the other campus. So that requires you to start pulling your TELPAS roster every week. Do not just pull it once and say, I'm done. You need to pull it, I did a habit of either doing it every Friday or every Monday. But it would probably make sense to do it Monday afternoon after they, the registrar enroll students. But make a habit of pulling the roster every week. We're going to walk through the Pearson system. I'm going to give access the first week of February. And in that process, we'll talk about procedures for requesting students to be added to TELPAS. We're going to change it up just a little bit in February, but we'll give you more information about how to submit a request for clarities in February. Are there any other questions? Well, have a great evening. I know your evening is still not done. Thank you for being